How good is Superman? I mean, actually. Not using opinion, but hard metrics. If you could measure its watchability the way you measure a couch in IKEA you're deciding to buy, depth, comfort, durability, how well it fits your life, can you do the same with a film? That's what I'm doing in this new series of reviews, breaking down storytelling into clear, universal tenets and testing the movie against them. Why? Because movie reviews today are broken. A film can be brave, flawed, moving, or misunderstood and still end up reduced to a number, or worse, an emoji. But stories aren't just good or bad, they're complex machines. So what if we reviewed them like one? Welcome to How Good Is, the thinking person's review, where we judge a film not by consensus or hype, but by the 7 pillars of great storytelling. These are the 7 ways your brain interprets the story it's experiencing on screen and decides whether it's having a good time doing it. And at the end, you'll see a new kind of rating. Not an emoji, not a number, but a code that, for people who have taken the time to look deeper, captures the film's very storytelling soul. And it seems only fitting that for our very first review, we're starting with the first of a new cinematic universe, the opening chapter of DC Studios' new era, Gods and Monsters. So, let us go find the scientific answer to the searching question.
How good is Superman?
So, we've got our Howgoodicator here. We're going to go through these 7 pillars of great storytelling one by one. And at the end, I'll also reveal the most valuable player. The first pillar of great storytelling for the screen is the idea. The idea is the setup for the film, the premise, the question asked at the beginning that is answered at the end. This is really about how good the setup is, how much it draws you in, how different it is, how much it intrigues you. So here on our Howgoodicator, this is a simple slide mechanism. The better something is, the higher it goes, and the opposite is true. On Superman, the setup is that Superman is essentially so good, he's uncool, which I found kind of refreshing. I don't just mean Clark Kent, I mean Superman himself. He's outdated. Kind of makes for an interesting character. I didn't expect that. There's 2 other things as well. One is we're in a world where metahumans already exist. They've done away with the origin story and we're just thrown into the middle of this world. And then the third thing about the idea is that Superman can be beat. Now, I really love this because one thing I can't stand is characters that don't have flaws. They're like rubber. They can bounce back from anything. This was always my problem with Superman. He is just too invincible and you always assume that he's going to survive anything. Well, what I like about this, and the reason I'm going to score it a buried, I'm tempted to score it a chased, but I'm going to give it a buried, and that is because Superman can be beat. Literally within the first minutes of the film, we see blood around his mouth, which I think is an excellent visual. He's also got this raspy breathing, which is really cool to see Superman down and out and losing a fight. So for the I score, the idea score, Superman gets it buried. Let's have a look at the second pillar of great storytelling for the screen. The G score is how much the movie aligns with the genre. And the genre for Superman is obviously superhero films. It's also action adventure. And Superman is very much a superhero film. But the G score, the genre score, isn't just about how well it aligns with that genre. Some films give you a perfect genre film, but they don't add anything new to it. They don't give you something fresh about it. Those films would get a low genre score. Other films reject the genre entirely, which for me is a massive mistake. That riles the audience up, who came to see one type of film and are now seeing another. The high G scores are the ones that align with the genre, but give you something fresh while they're doing it. Superman aligns excellently with the genre, so you might think he's as high as June bugs. But does he give you something fresh? I'm going to say yes, in terms of the Superman canon. The visuals are stunning. There's some real painterly panoramas in this film that are doing something that other Superman films don't do. So let's see. It's either a June bugs or a dreams. I would give it June bugs for its genre alignment, but in terms of offering something fresh and different, I'm going to give it dreams. So that's the G score, that's the genre. The third pillar of excellent storytelling for the screen is the F score, the flow. The flow is the difference between the story feeling natural and the story feeling forced. And by forced, we mean forced by the storyteller, how much the writer is imposing him or herself on the story. And the audience picks up on this. When a storyteller changes the cause to get a different effect, or the storyteller ignores the cause and forces the effect, that's when you get what I call stepping in a story. A step story is a story that is forced, and you can tell it's written. You can almost feel the writer behind it, telling you how they want you to feel. Whereas a flowing story almost feels like it was uncovered rather than written, that it already existed and was merely revealed rather than being created. So this is the F score. And with Superman, I have to say, it had good flow. And part of the reason for this is it leans into its comic book nature, which means it can be more playful in a way that, say, a Nolan's Batman can't, because it's grounded in the real world. In James Gunn's version of Superman, he can kind of let the story go wherever he wants it to go, because the rules of the world are so flexible. He's ended up with good flow. It kind of does go wherever it wants to go, and I like it for that. So I'm going to give it a blindly. I'm tempted to give it a brightly, but I'm going to give it a blindly. Its F score is blindly. The S score, surprise. This is very simply its freshness. Every good story is both unexpected and inevitable. In other words, the best stories give you what you want, but in a way that you've never seen before. Now, was this version of Superman surprising? Well, I think it felt fresh in terms of how it relates to the more recent versions of Superman we've seen before. Gets a high score for that. Does it feel fresh in relation to all the superhero films we've seen recently, mostly from Marvel? Not so much. Does it feel fresh in terms of action adventure? A little bit, I have to say. Like I say, the visuals on this film were stunning. And I don't just mean the CGI or the action. I mean these kind of vignettes where you get these beautiful panels almost as if they're double page spreads in comics, and they're beautifully colored and composed and lit, and they could be paintings on your wall. I loved that about this. I felt that was fresh. So I'm going to give it, it's almost an above, but I think its S score is a near. Let's have a look at its W score. This is its worry score. What do I mean by worry? I mean, how much do we worry about the characters? This is really the suspension of disbelief. The more your disbelief is suspended, the more you align with the character. The more you align with the character, the more you genuinely worry about them. I gotta say, maybe for the first time watching Superman, I genuinely worried about him. What I liked about this is that Superman could be hurt, and he really seemed down and out in a way that a kind of nerdy outcast would be. I liked him. I worried about him. I'm going to give it an each. It's almost a the, but I think it's an each. No, it's a the. I'm going to give his worry score a the. Okay. Let's have a look at the next pillar of great storytelling for the screen, which is the P score. It is the payoff, which is the flip of the setup, the idea pillar, the I score, meaning how much did this movie pay off the idea it set up at the beginning? How much did it answer the question it set up at the beginning? Did it stick the landing? I'm going to say yes. So we're not down here in the rusted or the wounded or the forgotten or, God forbid, the pulsating. We are up here, but where? Because whilst it did stick the landing, it was a typical superhero ending, meaning something massive was going to be destroyed and needs to be saved. Well, let's talk about the first pillar, the idea. We talked about three things. That Superman was a kind of out-of-date, nerdy character. I think it definitely paid that off. That he could be beat. I think it also paid that off. That we're entering the story late, that metahumans already exist. And yeah, kind of paid that off, but that felt less fresh. So I'm going to give it, doesn't quite deserve a cold. That feels a little cold. I'm going to give it Hi, sorry to pause. If this has got your gears turning or is hitting a nerve or even just stirring a thought, consider subscribing for more reviews, deeper analysis, better questions, helpful answers. Also, I want to hear from you. Comment below if you have suggestions for films to review. Okay, back to the thing. Yeah, I'm going to give it a dying or a silent. I'm going to give it a dying. I think its P score is dying. I think it pretty well stuck the landing. Okay, so the final pillar of the 7 pillars of great storytelling for the screen is memorability, the M score. Simply, the M score is how much does that film stick with you after you've left the cinema or turned off the screen? How much does it stay with you into the future? How much does it embed itself into the culture? Some films are awesome, brilliant, but the moment it's finished, you'd never think about it again. It doesn't become part of the culture. It doesn't give you life lessons that you're still talking about years later, or classic scenes. It's not pulled apart online. They don't write books about it. Films don't copy it. They're still great films, but they evaporate. Other films are great films, but they stick. They stick in your mind after you've left. You think about it the next day, the next week. They become beloved. Other people copy them. The imagery, the words from them become part of the culture. So, Superman's M score. Now, I really like this film. I loved it. Has it impacted the culture? How much will it stick around? How different is it? How much did it become part of me? I'm going to say, as good as it is, and I do think it's good, it's like a toy or a Hulk, you know? It's going to stick around for a bit, but not forever. So that's a toughie, actually. I'm going to go with Hulk. Now, in a minute, we're going to add these pillar scores together for a final cumulative score. But first, let's talk about the MVP. The MVP is the person amongst the creative team who contributed the best storytelling element. Let's have a look. David Corenswet was awesome. When I heard him announced as the new Superman, my heart sank. I had different ideas about what Superman should be. I thought he should be more alien, you know, but I have to say that David Corenswet did a fantastic job. He did embody that character and I loved it. The rest of the cast, fantastic. And here we've got production designers, art directors, set decorators, and costume designers. But, you know, when all is said and done, I've got to give this to James Gunn. I kind of loved it. I must admit, in the first few scenes of the film, I was like resistant to it, but I started to give myself over to it, not decide what it should be or what I was expecting. And as I watched it, I fell in love with it more and more. So I have to give it to James Gunn. He is our MVP of Superman 2025. And that gives us this final cumulative how good score. So when you ask how good is Superman, the answer is this.
James buried dreams blindly near the dying Hulk.